Mom, Dad, let's go to SeaWorld. Come on, let's go see the whales. Oh, they're so adorable. They're such gentle and loving creatures. When's the next show? Besides it being a theme park, did you also know that SeaWorld is a prison? Yes, a prison for orcas. People don't see the truth in how bad it is for these whales to be kept in captivity for years and the dangers of it. We have to look past at how adorable these creatures are and worry more about their health and environment. For every visitor that comes to SeaWorld, they are supporting the captivity and misery of these precious creatures without even realizing they are. We need to look beneath the surface and stop holding them in captivity. The three major points that I want to talk about are the captivity and the environment in SeaWorld, the dangers, and injustice of it. To start off, so what's the process of this captivity? What they do is they use airplanes and speedboats to surround the orcas. They use 3-acre nets, deafening explosives, and with all this going on, the whales are crying out for help to the males, and the males can't do anything about it because they're also in that same situation. They're also trapped. So what they do is they separate the moms from the young calves, and after they have captured them, they take them onto bed trucks and transport them to marine parks where they are to perform and die. So right now in the United States there are 56 whales and that have been transported back and forth to aquariums, and also in the process of of trying to capture the orcas, they die. It's very unfortunate and sad. I'd like to show you a video on some of the people who have been in crews where they have had to captivate the whales.
It was a really exciting thing to do until everybody wanted to do it.
What were they telling you were going to do?
Capture orcas.
They had aircraft, they had spotters, they had speedboats, they had bombs they were throwing in the water. They were lighting their bombs with acetylene torches in their boats and throwing them as fast as they could to herd the whales into coves. But the orcas had been caught before, and they knew what was going on, and they knew their young ones would be taken from them. So the adults without young went east into a cul-de-sac, and the boats followed them, thinking they were all going that way, while the mothers with babies went north. But the capture teams had aircraft, and they have to come up for air eventually, and when they did, the capture teams alerted the boats and said, oh no, they're going north, the ones with babies. So the boats, the speedboats, caught them there and herded them in. And then they had fishing boats with seine nets that they would stretch across so none could leave, and then they could just pick out the young ones.
So the environment in SeaWorld is completely different from the ocean. We know that much. Normally the whales, they swim for 100 miles and 200 feet deep. And they eat 30 different species. And in SeaWorld, the tank is about 36 feet deep, 180 feet long, and 90 feet wide. And they are fed dead herring, which is basically commercial fish food, and it's convenient for SeaWorld and the trainers to feed them because it's the most commercialized fish food. And it's also the environment also ties in with the dangers of it. Why? Because the whales, they snap at each other, and you would think because they're the same species they would get along. That's not the case. They come from different families and they have their own culture just like we do, and they have different personalities, behaviors, diets, and hunting tactics. They live in complex social groups and they have strong bonds with their members of their pods, and it's like a pod can have 30 to 50 of them. The lack of mental stimulation causes them high levels of stress, aggression, and mental illness. And being caged inside, it makes them go mad. Take, for example, which also leads into the how trainers have died, like 3 of them, and the most recent one had made news was of Tilikum causing the death of Don Brancho, but before Don there was other two incidents where people have died because of Tilikum. So how did Dawn die? During a show, Dawn had been pulled back from her ponytail by Tilikum and dragged into the water. Her jaw was broken, and she died from blunt force trauma to the head, the neck, and the torso. Another instance is a trainer who was swimming in the tank with one of the orcas, and all of a sudden the orca had grabbed him by the leg and pulled him underneath the water, and for like a minute and a couple of seconds, and humans can't hold their breath for long, until the whale decided to come back up with the trainer and then drag him back down. So this happened several times until the orca decided to let him go, and that's when the trainer took the opportunity to swim back to the edge of the pool. I'd like to show you that video also.
A trainer fights for his life as he's dragged underwater by a killer whale in San Diego. Ken Peters was pulled around for 8 minutes during a live performance, but eventually broke free. He escaped with some puncture wounds to his feet and a broken ligament. This video is from 2006 but has been released as it's being used in an investigation of safety violations at SeaWorld.
And lastly, I want to talk about the injustice of it. Who are we to be entitled to exploit the animals and cause them suffering? Who are we to take them away from their families and their home? Can you imagine if your own child was kidnapped, your own son, daughter, sister, or brother? It's horrific. It's terrible. And these animals they're very intellectual animals, and they feel and they have emotions just like us. We're actually causing them more harm to them than being out in the natural wild. Like, because they're being kept in the tank, and they're getting mentally distressed and from being isolated, they get dental disease because they bite the gates and the sides of the pool. And they actually, because they're being held captive, they have this dorsal fin that's on the back, and normally out in the wild the fin is straight, whereas in captivation their dorsal fin is flopped to the side. SeaWorld is using them for their greedy purposes, and it's obviously to make money. They're not using them for educational purposes. They're using them for entertainment, and that entertainment is causing orcas to be kept in tanks for years, and it's full of despair and sadness. They're also, Tilikum, for example, they're not going to let him go because his sperm is worth a lot of money, and he has sired over 21 orcas within the SeaWorld theme parks, and it's terrible because they're, like I said, they're not going to let him go, and they don't want other people capturing him and killing him or using him for their own amusements too. So what normally, we're also disrupting the way they behave and their mannerisms, because, for example, take a mother whale and her son. Once he's matured, they use his sperm and they inject it into the mother, and it's disruptive to their behavior, and especially their culture and the way they work and their social group, is because incest is taboo. They're very aware of that, and just like it's taboo for us, and normally the males go mate with out of their family. They don't mate within the group. They belong in the ocean with the rest of their families, just like we would belong with our own families. I have never gone to SeaWorld, and nor do I plan on stepping foot inside that park, but if I do decide to go see these whales, I'm gonna go see them in their natural habitat, their home in the ocean. Now, what can we do to stop these parks from holding them captive? Well, for one, we can definitely boycott SeaWorld. Their stocks would drop, and buying tickets, it's supplying them. By buying a ticket, you're basically supporting them to hold them there, because with that money, they're just keeping the park going. Theme parks are different from sanctuaries and rehabilitation centers. In rehabilitation centers, what happens is they take an injured and endangered species, they fix them up, and once they're recovered, they let them go. Theme parks aren't like that. Tilikum has been held for over 30 years. When are they going to let him go? And that's the question. And I don't think they're going to. They don't want to. That's money swimming away for them. So, to quote Jeremy Bentham, the question is not can they reason nor can they talk, but rather can they suffer. And with that said, it makes me wonder who the animal really is in this situation. The whales or us. Let's make a difference.